The latest update or patch to Atlas included the addition of Tranq Arrows to add to our arsenal for taming. What I want to do in this video is go over how torpidity works with these Tranq Arrows, meaning what the effect is of the tranquilizer in the arrows depending on the animal, and I also want to check out how the quality of bow will affect the torpidity. Before we get started, I wanted to mention how you can actually get a hold of Tranq Arrows. You have to level up to tier 2 taming at least in the beast mastery tree, and then you can go to a mortar and pestle, put some stone arrows in there and some berries in there, and make these Tranq Arrows. You do need quite a few berries, so make sure you stock up on those if you're planning on taming with Tranq Arrows. The first animal I'm going to try and tame is one of the ostriches, and I'm going to be using a common quality bow along with the Tranq Arrows. So it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It takes 6 arrows to take one of these down. And I found a second bird, and we're going to try with the mythical quality bow now. As you can see, the torpidity actually doubles, more than doubles. So it went from, 70 to 196 at one point, and that only took 4 arrows to take him down. So I think the idea that the devs are going for is that they want you to knock out the animals, then cage them, or in some cases drag them to a taming pen. Some of these animals can be actually picked up after you've knocked them out. Not all of them. You can't pick up horses. I couldn't pick up like rhinos or elephants. But I can pick up sheep and bulls and things like that. We'll come across that later in the video. Unfortunately, you still do have to hit the animal until its health is low enough that you can bola it. And really, I know it's a game and these are just pixels, but it just feels wrong, so I'm really hoping maybe something can be done about that in the future. But now that I have it down low enough, I can bola it. The only issue is you can't feed it until it's woken up. I did run around and experiment with a few other animals. As you can see, the mythical bow knocked out the bull in 2 arrows, and we're about to see what it does to a rhino. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And here's a look at taking down an elephant with a normal quality bow. I'm going to have to speed this up a little bit. I might actually even just stop attacking it because it takes way too long, as you can clearly see here. But I did find another elephant and I pulled out the mythical bow for it, and it ended up taking me 18 shots to take it down. So while it still is a huge amount, at least I was able to take the elephant down. With the other bow and arrow, I was not able to, and I actually think I ended up breaking the bow. So I do think that if you want to use taming arrows on the bigger creatures, that the mythical bow, or just a bow that isn't a common or fine bow, is probably going to be the way to go. And I'm obviously using a GM buff, so that factors into this too. You'd be getting attacked by these creatures instead of them just walking away slowly. But here's an example of dragging the body. So it's just a sheep. You don't even need to put it to sleep in order to tame it, but I figured I would just show you that you can drag these and bop them in a taming pen. And moving right along with our testing, let's see what the common bow does on a horse. So that's 3 shots, 4 shots, 5, 6, 7. So it takes 7 shots with a common bow to take a horse down, and then you can go ahead and bop a cage over it. And it goes without saying that a mythical bow would take that horse down much easier, but also it seems that this is the way to tame birds. So super easy to take birds out of the sky and throw a cage on them too. So now that we have the facts out of the way and we did a little bit of testing, I am going to move on to my opinion. At first, when I shot my first Tranq arrow, I was really underwhelmed. It was on a horse, and it took many shots to take it down, and the horse ended up bolting halfway across the island and into the water, which is no fun. And horses are one of the creatures that you can't pick up once they've been knocked out, so it would have just suffocated in the water. As I said, there are creatures you can pick up and move, which I do think is pretty cool. I believe a lion is one of them. I think it's interesting. You can pick up those big lions, but you can't pick up a horse. You can pick up a bull, but you can't pick up a horse. So the logic isn't really there, but at the same time, what is logical about Atlas? Mel, my mod, says where Atlas begins, all logic ends, and I think that's a pretty accurate statement with this taming. So as you can see here, you can knock out alphas with it and maybe cage them and use them as experience fodder, meat shield kind of thing. I don't know. As I said, I was underwhelmed. And so I didn't think to test higher quality weapons or higher quality bow, but I'm really glad that I did, because I do think that using a legendary or mythical bow does have a place in taming. It was really easy to knock out really big creatures, and it was also really convenient to be able to knock out the really small ones in 1 or 2 shots and then build a pen around them or cage them. So I'm glad I took a lot of time to get to know the system before I did a video, because honestly it was going to be a pretty critical video about why did the Atlas developers add this to the game of all things instead of going back and fixing everything that's already plaguing the game right now. I still kind of take that stance, but at the same time, I'm really glad to see that there is some activity going on in a game that has been dormant for so long and development really hadn't been popping, and now it seems like it is. So I do have to commend the devs for that, just coming back and, well, I should say starting and getting Atlas going again. Is this going to change how I tame? Maybe. I really liked how quickly the mythical bow could take down a rhino, and I think it would be much easier to do it that way than to build the billboards around it and then lure it into the billboards. You know what I mean? More often than not, or at least in my experience, I would end up getting killed before I could get a successful trap built up. I know people use bears in order to get the health down and then bola them, but I also didn't have very good luck with that. I guess it all really just depends on your taming style. So yeah, maybe I will end up using these Tranq Arrows as long as I have a legendary or mythical bow. I think that's the caveat here. I don't think I would use a common bow with these Tranq Arrows to do anything. So early game taming, unless you have a group of people all shooting Tranq Arrows at the same target, might be out of the picture for solo players. So maybe this is good once you've had a chance to do some maps and make some treasure runs and get some good blueprints so that you can make some higher tier bows. I think this might be the first of the changes to breeding and taming that were talked about on the forums in a post not too long ago. It was mentioned that there is a developer specifically tasked with changing up the breeding and taming in Atlas, so I'm really curious to see where it goes from here. I think this is just a stepping stone, and I do think it was a step in the right direction, although maybe the numbers might need a little changing. I do like that we can use the mythical bow, but as I said, I don't think there's much use at the very beginning with a common bow unless you're wanting to tame some birds. So there are definitely some pros and cons, but overall, I kind of think it's a pretty positive addition. It's certainly not the end-all be-all method of taming, but it is another way to let players choose how they'd like to tame. And that was my quick look at the new Tranq Arrows in Atlas. So now I want to know what you all think of them. I have read on the forums, on Discord, and around the other YouTube channels that these new Tranq Arrows are kind of thought to be useless, and I can definitely see that when you are using a common bow or even a fine bow. It takes forever just to take down some of the more basic animals, never mind even getting into rhinos and elephants. But what I do think is golden about this edition is the fact that the mythical bows are really effective, and it gives you a reason to even look for a mythical bow or make a mythical bow. So I think it is a pretty good step in the right direction as far as taming goes. So beyond commenting down below, I'd also ask that if you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, or if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, and also subscribe to my channel if you have not already. So that is it for me. As always, links to my socials are in the description box down below, and I hope you all are enjoying your games, particularly if you're playing around with some Atlas. I will see you all in the next video.